feeling low.
Hey there, Lemonheads, and welcome back to the Lemonade Stand, or welcome if you are new. My name is Brianna. I'm a certified personal trainer, a big, huge biology nerd, and a registered dietitian to be. I've gathered you all here today for episode 8 of my ongoing series, True Science. In this series, I combine my love of science with my interest in true crime. Here we talk about everything from doctors that turned out to be frauds, strange medical phenomenon, mad scientists, and everything in between. The object of my curiosity today, the disturbing and disgusting fall from grace of once renowned and respected fertility doctor, Donald Cline. Before we proceed, if you love science-based health, wellness, and fitness education with lots of lulz and lots of dry sarcasm on the way, and a hint of true crime having to do with those topics, why not hit that subscribe button and join the Lemonade Stand, because I would truly love to have you here. Without anything further, let's make some lemonade. So, I guess a trigger warning for today's video for just disgusting things. Also, I think I have to mention, because Dr. Cline was a fertility doctor, there's going to be a lot of mention of this stuff. So instead of repeatedly saying this word 1,000 times and getting this video demonetized, I'm instead going to say male jelly. That is a pop culture reference to the show Futurama. If you know, you know. In addition to that being my PC censor, I do hope that that does offer some small semblance of comedic relief while we talk about terrible shit. So the idea of this episode of True Science was actually born from me watching a Netflix documentary titled Our Father. I watched it actually sometime last year. I was fascinated, disgusted, and nauseated all at the same time. And now I'm going to pass those feelings on to you today. Anyway, I mentioned that because I'm going to be referencing that documentary quite a bit in today's video. And if you have Netflix, I definitely recommend you give it a watch. It's very interesting. All right, so Donald Lee Cline was born on December 10th, 1938. Oh my God, he has the same birthday as my best friend. I just realized that. Not much more information on his early life, really, so let's go ahead and skip to his college years. So many of these cases that I cover, these are true crime. You know, that's like the crime element. But here, when I talk about true crime, you know, I'm not talking about like, you know, first degree unaliving and like, you know, the cases that we see a lot about in the media. So because of that, I feel like it's not as easy to find background information on the people in the cases that I cover. So I feel like this is like the third video in a row where I'm like, well, I couldn't find any information on his early life, so let's just skip to college. So sorry about that. So Mr. Cline did his undergraduate degree at Indiana University, and for medical school, he attended Indiana University School of Medicine. He would later go on to put in some military service with 2 years in the Air Force and 12 years in the Reserve. It was in 1979 that he opened up his clinic in Indianapolis, and his specialty at this point was infertility and reproductive health. He operated and practiced there until his retirement in 2009. So in terms of his personal life, Mr. Cline is married and he has 98 children. He's also a Sagittarius. Oh, you're still stuck on the whole 98 kids thing, huh? Well, then let's get to the meat of this twisted tale. So there is another player in this tale, actually several, but we're just going to chat about one of them. Her name is Jacoba Ballard. Jacoba is the daughter of one of Dr. Cline's former patients. Remember I said he specializes in infertility? One of the treatments that he offered was artificial insemination. And it's at this point that I'm going to start referencing the Netflix documentary a lot more. So Jacoba had known from a young age that she was conceived via an anonymous sperm donor. And one day she just decided that she wanted to see if she had any half-siblings from this donor. So they lived in this smallish town in Indiana, and where Dr. Cline was practicing, it was supposed to be common practice to not reuse the same sperm donor more than, I think they said in the documentary, more than like 3 or 4 times or something like that. And this is to prevent half-siblings from like marrying each other and hooking up and making babies, right? So it came as a surprise to Jacoba when she submitted her DNA to a DNA testing site. I believe it was 23andMe, and it turned up 8 half-siblings. And this was surprising because remember, they said at the clinic, they said they try not to reuse the same donor more than, you know, a few times, 3 to 5 times or whatever they said. And she had 8 half-siblings, which means they have the same biological father. It began with her just reaching out to them just to say, hey, what's up? I'm your half-sibling, yada, yada, yada. Let's go get some coffee. I don't know. I don't know what she said, but it was something like that, you know? It was just a casual reaching out like, hey, we're half siblings. So that's all well and good, right? Sounds innocent enough. But if that were the end of the story, we would not be here. So after she touched base with a couple of her half siblings, from there, more and more matches kept popping up on the DNA testing site. And eventually Jacoba started to be like, okay, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Batman. There should not be this many of us. So after this, Jacoba decided to put on her detective hat and do some sleuthing. And she found out that at 20 years old, her mother visited Dr. Cline for fertility treatments. You can probably guess where this is going. More sleuthing and more digging, and she eventually discovered that Dr. Donald Cline was her anonymous donor, her biological father. The male jelly that her mother was inseminated with belonged to Dr. Donald Cline. And Jacoba's mother not only had no idea about this, but she did not consent to it. When I tell you guys my jaw dropped watching this, I mean it. Like, it's beyond disgusting. It's just like, it's violating. Can you imagine? So from there, the Pandora's box had been opened, and they realized that if Dr. Cline was Jacoba's male jelly donor and her biological father, and all of them were half siblings whose mothers visited Dr. Cline for fertility treatments, they connected the dots and they realized that Dr. Cline was their biological father, their donor. And this is where we need to take a moment to just talk about these victims, because yes, they're victims. And not just the mothers who visited Dr. Cline for fertility treatments. The children born to this man are victims too. These women had gone to this fertility doctor to be artificially inseminated with what they think was either... Sorry, I thought I heard someone tap on my window, but I guess I would see it on my camera. I have my camera right in front of me. They go to be inseminated by this doctor with who they think is either an anonymous male jelly donor, or it's their husband's male jelly, get pregnant, and then you find out years later that this anonymous donor, or the male jelly that you thought was your husband's, actually belonged to the doctor that was treating you. Oh my fucking God. There was one story that made me cry while I was watching this documentary. The mom and daughter were sitting there at the table just kind of telling their story. Like many women, mom had visited Dr. Cline for fertility treatments, and she was artificially inseminated with what she believed was her husband's male jelly, gets pregnant, has their daughter, and then they go on and live their happy lives. Only to find out years later that the daughter, I think at that point she was in her 30s, that their daughter was not her dad's biological father. I remember the daughter talked about the experience of seeing her dad's face and seeing him cry was like the worst thing she had ever seen. For him to find out that his daughter was not really his daughter. And I know most of us hear that and think, baby, he's your dad. Because I know I heard that. Like, as sad as that is, like, that's still your father. He raised you. But that's still a devastating thing to find out. Like, it turns your whole world upside down and it completely rocks your identity. My heart seriously broke for every single one of them. They were all victims. The unsuspecting mothers who went to this fertility doctor who's supposed to be this amazing great guy, and they were inseminated with this man's male jelly without their consent or knowledge. Their children were born thereafter, and the fathers of the children who thought that they were raising their biological children. God. Something else that's really just disgusting about this, and like, I don't know, just kind of makes your skin crawl. In the documentary, they brought up a really interesting point. They said that for like the best, I don't want to say for the best results. I mean, I guess I'll say that for lack of a better term, but they said for the best results, when a woman is undergoing artificial insemination, the sample, the male jelly, should be harvested like within the hour. So, this is so disgusting. Like in the documentary, they painted the picture and basically laid out what was likely happening, that the women are in the patient room, like getting ready, you know, putting on that paper dress and whatever. And Dr. Cline is in the next room over, choking the lizard. I'm sorry. I know that's not, I'm just trying to keep it PC here, into a, you know, whatever they use to collect the sample, and then walks into his patient's room and then inseminates them with his stuff. What the fuck? We're not even done. We're not even done. So, what Mr. Cline did was absolutely disgusting. I think we can all agree on that. It was extremely violating. It was dishonest. It was deplorable, reprehensible, all the words. So I'm watching the documentary and I'm like, okay, well, this is clearly a crime of some magnitude, right? Like, this can't be legal. On top of that, this man, in a phone call recorded by Jacoba, admitted to what he was doing, and he very clearly knew that what he was doing was wrong. There was a point where Jacoba reached out to him and confronted him about this. It was a while ago that I watched the documentary, documentary, but I'm pretty sure they played the phone call in the documentary. He was asking Jacoba not to bring it to the media. He was saying, oh, I don't want my wife to find out because, you know, our marriage is already difficult and blah, blah, blah. And his wife considered it adultery, which I don't blame her. He was like, oh, this will ruin my marriage. He also said that he didn't think he was doing anything wrong, which, I'm sorry, what?
I thought I was doing the right thing. I only donated my own sample maybe 9 or 10 times. My wife and I, after 57 years of marriage, have had a great deal of problems over this. She considers this adultery.
I just call BS on him for that. You didn't think what you were doing was wrong. Then why didn't you want your wife to know? Why didn't you want the media to know? If you don't have anything to hide, if you didn't do anything wrong, why don't you want anybody to know about it? And on top of that, at some point during that phone call, he quoted a Bible verse to try and justify his disgusting actions. Don't you love people who do that?
I regret what I did.
Yeah.
But I can't go back and change it. One of my favorite scriptures was Jeremiah 1:5. If you remember, it says, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you.
What the fuck? I'll try and put in a couple minutes of the clips in here. Crime Watch Daily covered this case, and actually Elizabeth Smart, she actually reported on this case. If you don't know the story of Elizabeth Smart, years ago she was kidnapped and held hostage when she was very young. They violated her and she survived her whole ordeal. I think it's incredible that she went on to be a reporter and like reports on true crime stuff. But anyway, so I bet you want me to tell you next that Dr. Cline was prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and is rotting away in prison, continuously getting violated as he did to his patients. I bet you want me to tell you that, right? But I'm not going to, because that would be a lie. So eventually Jacoba went to the media because she wanted the story public. There are many reasons why the story needed to be public, I think. First off, this has to be some kind of medical misconduct or something, right? Dr. Cline treated, I believe, hundreds of patients. He admitted on the phone call that Jacoba recorded that he had only done it 9 to 10 times, but DNA testing would later prove that that was just an outright lie. Because at this moment in time, he is known to be the biological father of at least 94 children of his patients. So denying that just seems stupid because, hello, science. Also, the suburb of Indiana where this was taking place was a smallish town. So you have a bunch of half-siblings here and they live, work, and just exist in close proximity to each other. They run the risk of hooking up, getting married, having kids. It's important that they know, you know, nobody wants to marry their fucking sister. I mean, some people might, but you get what I'm saying. Jacoba referred to the situation as a health crisis, and I think that that is very accurate. Anyway, Jacoba eventually went public with this story, and she also filed a complaint with the Indiana State Attorney General, Tim Delaney, who launched an investigation in 2015. So I guess Mr. Delaney did some digging around, and he ultimately declined to prosecute Dr. Cline for those actions because, and I quote, "there is no law forbidding Cline's conduct." What? I'm sorry. What? And you might be thinking right now, oh, well, maybe they can like make it fit under some other crime. Like, you know how sometimes that can be done if you watch a lot of true crime like I do. Sometimes a certain law can kind of be contorted to make a certain offense fit into a certain category so that the offense can be prosecuted successfully. However, the Attorney General also said existing laws could not be made fit. What? When I tell you guys my jaw dropped, I'm not joking. Believable. How is this not a crime? I remember in the documentary, in the discussion with the Attorney General to understand how this was not some type of crime, I think it was Jacoba Ballard herself who asked, like, and I'm not positive on this, but she said something like, so if I walk up to someone and spit in their face, is that a crime? And Attorney General said, yes, that is a crime. That's, it's assault or battery or something, whatever they said. But basically, yes, it's a crime to spit in someone's face. Okay, but it's not a crime, though, for someone to inseminate me with their male jelly without my consent. What? So remember, at this point, Jacoba has reached out to the media, and at this point, this story made it to the desk of a journalist named Angela Ganote. It was basically her investigating that helped break this story wide open and made it more well-known. She played a pretty integral part in getting Dr. Cline to admit what he had done. So we're gonna backtrack now, and let's go back and talk about the Attorney General's investigation. So part of their investigation was to touch base with Dr. Cline and, you know, ask him about it, get his side of the story, what have you. So the Attorney General sent Dr. Cline a questionnaire, which Dr. Cline lied on, and he later admitted to Angela Ganote that he had lied. And it was only after that that the county prosecutor was like, okay, maybe we can do something now. So specifically on the probable cause affidavit, Dr. Cline said, quote, "I can empathetically say that at no time did I ever use my own sample for insemination, nor was I a donor," end quote. And it was very easy to prove that he was lying because science, hello. And it was only then that he was charged with a crime. He was ultimately charged with 2 counts of obstruction of justice, and his penalty was 1 year suspended sentence. So, just to recap, he was not charged with anything related to inseminating his unsuspecting patients with his male jelly without their consent, but they did get him on obstruction of justice. So, in the Netflix documentary, I remember a part, there was a clip of them being in court while all this was happening. And I believe, again, it was Jacoba. She was reading, like a victim impact statement. She was just talking about, you know, how this experience hurt her and her family, it rocked their world, etc. Typical things that you would expect to hear from a victim in this situation. And I distinctly remember Dr. Cline's lawyer interrupting her and saying something like, that stuff is irrelevant to what Dr. Cline is being charged with now. You need to stay on topic. Those weren't her exact words, but she said something like that. And I was like, bitch. So in terms of what Mr. Cline did, sorry, because he relinquished his medical license and he's no longer a medical doctor. I mean, he's retired anyway, so like, did that even do anything? But whatever. So this thing that Mr. Cline did is not new. Apparently this is something called fertility fraud, and it is scarily not unheard of. I can make another video about this very same topic about another fertility doctor who's done the same thing as this guy. For example, Quincy Fortier, a fertility doctor in Nevada. That's a name I came across while I was researching for this video. He did the same thing. He used his male jelly to inseminate his patients without their knowledge or consent. And you know what's disturbing about this? I mean, aside from all of it, after Cline was exposed, it also exposed an extreme lack of legislation surrounding this sort of thing. What the fuck? There was really no like hard and fast rules forbidding this kind of conduct. Nothing specifically in place to like protect patient rights to make sure that they definitely get the male jelly that they're promised, which, why is it even a question? Like, why do we need a law? You know, I say that, but like, there's laws against murder, but people do it all the time. Anyway, so this experience prompted Jacoba to push for more legislation for this in Indiana, where she lived. In May of 2019, Indiana became the first state to classify fertility fraud as a level 7 felony. Since this whole thing with Dr. Cline, there's been a few civil cases filed by some of his biological children and by some of his former female patients who were impregnated by him using his male jelly without their consent or knowledge. Some of those cases have only recently closed, and I think some are even still pending right now. So yeah, that was the disgusting story of Mr. Cline, the once hailed fertility doctor found to have been impregnating his unsuspecting patients with his own male jelly. There are obviously many, many things that are messed up about this, but one of the many things that just gets me, based on one source I came across, is that, let's say that Mr. Cline was just some guy who went to a sperm bank and just wanted to donate. Based on one source I read, he wouldn't have been even eligible to donate because he has autoimmune disease. He has rheumatoid arthritis. And a lot of the biological children he has from impregnating their mothers with his male jelly without their consent have autoimmune conditions that have been linked to their donor, Mr. Cline. So I don't know, that's just like another rub in it, you know? That's just like rubbing salt in the wound. Like, you really have the audacity to do what you did, and on top of that, you give me subpar DNA. Now I got autoimmune disease. What the f***, man? I just feel so bad for them. So we only talked about Jacoba because it was really her that sort of spearheaded this entire thing. But remember, so far, it has been found that he has fathered at least 94 children. 94 lives that were ruined and turned completely upside down after finding this out. This started me down another rabbit hole. Like, I can't believe that this is a thing that happened. And I think Jacoba is a badass, and I applaud her for pressing forward with this, exposing this man, and demanding change. All right, so that concludes episode 8 of True Science. Again, if you have Netflix, check it out. The Our Father documentary. Check out Jacoba on, she's on Instagram. If you made it to this point, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you want to see more videos just like it, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys next month for another episode of True Science. You all stay safe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Queen Lemon, over and out. Let's get flying dogs. Guys, love my mug. I love clear glass mugs. Hello, Onyx. Oh, hello, sir and madam. Are y'all supposed to be on my bed? No, you are not. Why do we always do this, huh? Too cool to even look at the camera. You're just too cool. When can you say goodbye to everybody? Can you say goodbye? Such a handsome boy. Such a handsome boy. The hippo back there.